The best driver's car. Some might say it's a BMW, but those same people would say you don't need to use your turn signal. For the rest of us, the best driver's car is and has been the Mazda Miata. And that's been true for the last 30 years. The question is, which generation is the best Miata? Find out today on this episode of Henry with Cars. This is the latest creation to emerge from Mazda's Hiroshima factory. And since Mazda has announced the next Miata will be some form of electric, this may well be the very last petroleum-powered MX-5. I could tell you about its internal combustion engine and that it has the most power of any Miata ever built. Well, that's not true. And built by Mazda. But then I'd really be missing the point, wouldn't I? You don't buy a Miata for its performance figures, you buy it for this. And for that very reason, I was skeptical when this car came out. If you haven't paid attention over the years, cars have gotten fatter. For example, the Honda Civic in 1972 weighed a mere 1,300 pounds. 50 years later, the Civic now weighs more than double that. With that in mind, I was sure this car would be a bloated disappointment. But I was wrong! This is actually the shortest Miata they've ever made. And if you opted for the smaller 1.5 liter engine, this car would weigh the same as the original NA Miata from the 1990s. And it would have more power. Truly amazing. I don't know how they did that. But even more shocking than its light weight is its face. This is the first Miata that's not cute. No. Mazda was tired of their Miata being a hairdresser car, so they made it angry. They made it so angry, in fact, that this one would scare even the most menacing of hairdressers back to the salon. As impressive as it is, the ND has one major drawback: the price. To own one of these, you'd be spending $30,000 on a car with less than 200 horsepower. For those of you looking for a more affordable Miata, let's take a trip back in time to the NC generation, or as some know it, the black sheep of the Miata family. It's gotten a bad reputation for being the heaviest Miata and having the softest suspension. It's a compromise, really. Mazda designed this third generation car with more comfortable cruiser and less sprightly sports car. Unfortunately, the story doesn't get much better when you get inside. If the ND's interior is the Ritz-Carlton, the NC is more of a Holiday Inn. The sharp plastic edge on the shifter juts into your hand every time you shift, and the design of the instrument cluster is more uninspired than Ringo Starr's solo work. But these drawbacks are actually the best part. The NC's bad reputation means that you can pick up a decent example for under 10 grand. And then at the end of the day, the performance really isn't as bad as some people on the internet might make it out to be. Its 2-liter engine puts out 158 horsepower, so it's pretty zippy. It is the heaviest Miata, but to put it in context, it's 1,000 pounds lighter than the new Supra. And that's not bad. And because it's the cheapest Miata, that means you'd have more room in the budget for upgrades. This one has a set of coilovers, and it's made quite the difference. This car may not be much of a threat on the freeway, but on a road like this, it's quite the menace. So then, it's every bit as fun as the current model, despite the lack of charm in the interior. But let's say you can't get over the NC's shortcomings. Look no further than the second generation NB. When the original Miata came out in 1989, it was an overnight success. And so Mazda was faced with a problem. How do you improve on a car that was already flawless? They made it faster. Not only did they squeeze a few more horsepower out of the engine, but they also upgraded the brakes and made it more aerodynamic. Mazda did some redecorating in here as well. Look at those stripes in the red line zone. This is a cockpit a driver can really fall in love with. On paper then, this is the best Miata. It's not overly expensive, it's not too heavy, it's an improvement on what already was a perfect recipe and then some. But I don't think I'd buy one. I'd buy this. The one that started it all. By the late 1970s, the fun, sporty, wind-in-your-hair British roadsters had all gone extinct. Austin Healey was dead, Triumph was on life support, and MG was making this. See, some bright chap at Mazda had the idea to create the 1970s British roadster without the 1970s British build quality. And they did a bang-up job, mate! Yes, it's the slowest Miata. But that's the whole point of the Miata, to be slow. If you tried to push an 800 horsepower Ferrari on a twisty road like this, you'd have to make a very expensive trip to the upholsterer after you soil yourself. But in this one, you can really ring it out without ever scaring yourself. It's the perfect equation for the most smiles per gallon! People don't forget how they felt when this car first arrived. It was a fun, sporty convertible that, at the same time, was practical, reliable, and affordable. It was on every car magazine's top 10 list. Dealers were on back order. There was a waiting list for this $14,000 Mazda. The first generation Miata is in fact as iconic as the original Beetle or the 65 Mustang. It comes from the golden era of Japanese car manufacturing, and the 1990s nostalgia doesn't let you forget it. All these cars are fantastic, but the NA Miata, then, is truly the purest version of the purest sports car in history. If you have a car you'd like us to review, shoot us a line at henrywithcars@gmail.com. Like, comment, and subscribe. And they did a bang-up job, mate.
That's Australian.